Thank God it's Friday. Here at Breakfast Central, we're very excited to be here again, bringing you some of the biggest stories that are happening in the country and some of the stories we've been tracking over the course of the week. You're welcome to the show. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osalgi Ogbawa. As always, encouraging you to be a part of the conversations this morning by simply joining us on our social media platforms, or rather tweeting at News Central TV. Let's know your thoughts on these conversations that we are having. And of course, when the phone lines are open, in the second half of Breakfast Central, you could also be a part of the conversation. Share your thoughts with us on any of the things that we bring up. As part of our major conversations this morning, we will be having, as always, fascinating guests. But it's important to quickly mention that a story that we took a couple of days ago, announcing the missing person announcement on Daniel Ogo, that's his name.
Yes.
Just to share, updates on that story. We received news yesterday saying that his brother had been found. And so, yeah.
I was so excited. I couldn't keep my calm. It was great to see that we had the conversation, and also just to say thank you to as many of you who helped share the story on social media when we posted as well. From the message he had sent to, he had said that, the interview and the conversation did help in him being found. So
yeah.
we definitely want to say thank you to our viewers as well for helping us spread the word, and we hope that his family will be completely reunited again, and we hope that we can find this a time to reconnect with him again shortly. All right. Well, congratulations to the family. We hope that they will join us when everything is settled down and we can celebrate together.
Yeah, I think for now they probably just need some time, according to what the conversation that I had with him. Some time as a family, and when the time is right, we'll have those conversations with them. But for now, it's really just to celebrate with the Ogo family that their son has been found. David's twin brother, has been found here in Lagos. By the way. And of course, we'll be eager to share more information about this as time passes.
And it's also just a reminder to us, about the power of media, the power in being able to amplify the voices of the voiceless, and the fact that, it's a collective responsibility. We talk about these things on air, and, you watch, you share the story, and it picks up life on its own. So thank you. Don't stop sharing our content is what I'm trying to say. Absolutely. At the end of the day. It's a collective work.
Yeah, and appreciating all the blogs who posted as well. It's really good. Anyway, this morning we're going to be having, more conversations concerning the cabinet reshuffle and what it means, and hopefully get to expand on the conversations concerning the Niger Delta ministry, that has been, seemingly dissolved. And again, once again, asking what this means for people of Niger Delta moving forward. We hope that, in the coming days, hopefully even on Breakfast Extra, we're able to push conversations on what these ministry has really brought to the Niger Delta. I saw a picture this morning of Bielsa State. And it was a POV, you live in Bielsa, complete darkness. And if you speak to people who actually live in Bielsa, who were from Bielsa, or who grew up in Bielsa, they would continue to share very disappointing stories about what that state, has been like and currently still is like. The argument for many people really is that there's no state in the Niger Delta that should be living in those conditions, where it's residents should live in those conditions. It's not the worst part of Nigeria, but it still deserves to be a lot better. If you look at the amount of money that normally and annually is scheduled for the Niger Delta, the 13% derivation as well, the NDDC and its funding, the states receiving monstrous allocations, compared to other states in the country. There's no reason whatsoever why the major oil producing states should have the look that they have. Bielsa in particular. River State, you can argue maybe, is somewhat developed. Bielsa, you can also argue sparely.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not, nobody who lives in those places, who comes from those places should still be living under those, those conditions and in those standards. And so it's once again, to ask the relevance that we've had for the Niger Delta ministry in the last couple of decades that has existed. What is the relevance also of the NDDC, the relevance of the North East Development Commission and every other development commission that we are hearing about today? We celebrated the Southeast Development Commission a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, when Ben Kallo announced, that they were going forward with creation of the Southeast Development Commission. But what really is the relevance? And if you can look at what these other development commissions have been able to bring forth to their regions, it's not a lot that you can boast of and say that, you know, these development commissions are extremely important. If we had functioning governments in these regions, would you necessarily need development commissions? If you had functioning local governments and functioning state governments and all the institutions of government that normally should function, provide healthcare, providing road infrastructure, to provide security, provide education, would you necessarily even need a development commission? Maybe not. But okay, we have those development commissions. What actual relevance have they been, and what is the change that they've brought to the regions that they exist in? It's not necessarily knocking them and saying that they're completely irrelevant, but it's really just a cry for help from these regions, that if you have this commission and you have billions and billions and billions of naira being budgeted for these development commissions every year, there should be an obvious change in these regions. If not, then let's really just redirect those funds back to the states and let the state governments handle those funds and, you know, provide some level of development and succor for the people of those states. Again, the Niger Delta is a disappointment. There's no other, I don't know that there's any argument that will change anyone's mind about how much the Niger Delta could be better, and it is.
Well, speaking of it being scrapped, the government will argue. I mean, Edwin Clark, who's an elder statesman, had said that the region will not accept that it be scrapped. But the government has argued that it's not scrapped, that what it's done is it's been renamed. You know, so it's now like a bigger responsibility. It's a regional development. So it's called now the Ministry of Regional Development, yes. So that it has a greater responsibility. And I'm hoping that, you know, as we get into the conversation proper, we can delve into what this means and what the implication of it is, and, you know, what this would look like for the people of the Niger Delta, and how exactly the people of the Niger Delta, or citizens, residents of the Niger Delta, will benefit from all this rejigging again. There, of course, have been pushbacks. There are those who do not agree with the rejigging that has occurred and has been announced by the presidency. Some in support of, you know, the hiring and the firing, but there are some who are completely against it, saying that it's just another avenue for a fresh set of hands to just touch money, and they don't really see what impact these ones could have. But I guess that within the next week or two, this should still be an ongoing conversation. I don't think that we're having an end to the conversation now, and what exactly this will mean, especially because there's of course going to be the names that have been sent to the Senate for the Senate to vet. They would also go through their screenings, and we'll see what the next steps are. But yes, we will talk about that this morning. But that's not all that we'll be talking about. Let's share with you what our top stories are, and after that, we'll bring you breakfast headlines. Mixed reactions trail President Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle, some for it, some against it, and some indifferent. Dangote Refinery kick-off direct petrol sale to marketers. What does this mean? The IPMAN spokesperson, Ukadike Chinedu, joins us to share more. Benue government dismisses Attorney General for questioning the EFCC's legality. And away from that, family struggle as Kogi flood worsens. State pleads for aid. It's not a good look. We review the newspaper front pages as we do every morning, opening the phone lines for you to join in as well. Now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
On breakfast headlines, President Bola Tinubu has restricted ministers and heads of departments and agencies to a maximum of 3 vehicles in the official convoys. Presidential spokesman Bayo Ononuga, who made this known in a statement on Thursday, said this is part of the cost-cutting measures of the president's administration. President Bola Tinubu also ordered all ministers of state, and heads of agencies to have at most 5 security personnel attached to them. Meanwhile, the Senate has received a request from President Bola Tinubu for the confirmation of the appointments of 7 ministerial nominees announced on Wednesday. President Bola Tinubu's request seeking expeditious consideration of the request was contained in a letter addressed to Senate President Godswill Akpabio, who read it at the commencement of plenary on Thursday. President Tinubu urged the Senate to consider and confirm the 7 nominees for appointment as ministers. Now, in the meantime, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has attributed the crisis plaguing African countries to a significant leadership deficit. In an exclusive interview with News Central TV's managing director and editor-in-chief, Kayode Akindemi, Obasanjo emphasized that the welfare of citizens is intimately tied to the quality of leaders in power. Also in the news, the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, also criticized the mismanagement of Nigeria's economy by successive governments after his administration after his administration ended, leading to unsustainable debt profiles for the country. Obasanjo also highlighted corruption as a major obstacle to progress. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Moving now back to Breakfast Central to get into our top stories. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa.
Welcome back. Following severe flooding that submerged 9 out of the 21 local government areas in Kogi State and north-central Nigeria, residents and the state government are calling urgently for intervention to address the crisis. The floods caused by continuous heavy rainfall and overflowing major rivers have forced many residents out of their homes with property worth millions in naira destroyed. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai visited the affected areas to assess the situation and filed in this report.
Amina Fatai, a resident of Kogi State, north-central Nigeria, recounts the nightmare that has befallen her family due to the severe flooding that has once again submerged the community. Amina explained that since she and her late husband built their house, they never faced such issues until 2012 when the floods began. She says that over the years, the situation has worsened with the floods in 2022 causing their house to collapse, leading to a tragic chain of events.
This water, they come small. Since this October, now small, they come. Like 1 week ago, now we sleep for inside in the night. You just see and say, don't bust out. Before we pack our load, all our load don't spoil. Year 2022, now we break our house for back. And nothing. Now my husband can't get VP. All my market for they sell, all the money can't finish. Small time, this year, February, now he fall, now he can wash and go Shifa, now he can't die.
Yusuf Abdullahi, a pensioner residing in Kogi State, has had to defy the floodwater at all costs to get to his home. For more than 25 years, this had been his home, but in the last 12 years, the fear of flooding has been a source of concern.
We've been here for over 25 years now, and the first experience we had was in 2012. That came unannounced, and almost half of the estates here was submerged. And since that, at intervals, it comes. Sometimes we don't park, sometimes we park. And it kept coming almost every 2 years. So it's been a very bad experience.
It seems that each time the floods come, government agencies advise residents like him to move to the designated internally displaced persons camp, a decision which is not easy to bear.
Where we are currently is what used to be the banks of River Niger. This place used to be farmlands to some of the Kogi residents whose homes have been affected by the flooding. Unfortunately, the situation now here is dire as his place has been sacked by the flooding.
At the internally displaced persons camp located at St. Luke's Primary School at Dankolo in Lokoja, the capital of Kogi State, people like Hawa Abib and Aliu Abdul Malik have sought refuge. Despite the less than ideal conditions, they say that they have no choice but to stay at the state government designated shelter for displaced persons.
As flood packers come here, they sleep, no food, no mattress, no many things, but we thank God for our governor. He helped us yesterday, and he helped us since day before yesterday, said we take some drops and some food yesterday, but no oil. Nothing.
This is the place that we share our food yesterday where they give us.
How long did they give you mosquito?
Top. We manage it like that. Even now, if you check around, mosquitoes, they are flying about. You see?
After assessing the situation, We visited Kingsley Fanwo, the Commissioner of Information for Kogi State, to get his perspective on the ongoing crisis. Fanwo says no life has been lost to the flood so far, but acknowledged that the state government has been overwhelmed by the scale of the flooding, which has displaced thousands of residents.
Going by the devastating situation in the state, it is already snowballing into a humanitarian crisis, and you could see that over 1 million people have been displaced already. It is already snowballing into a humanitarian crisis, and you could see that over 1 million people have been displaced already, and it's quite devastating. We have a local government, a Baji local government. As we speak, more than 85% of the people of the local government are outside of their homes. They have been displaced completely by the flood. The number of IDP camps we could put up right now definitely is not enough to cope with the massive number of people that are displaced by the flood. So it is quite challenging. It's stretching our resources, and also it's very difficult because as a government we cannot be looking at our people in that very, very terrible condition. So we are doing our best to be able to provide for their needs, but you know, we are overstretched.
There have been observations and complaints from some of these persons in the IED camp, where they even cited that the measurement of this foodstuff given to them was measured by a tin container. Is there anybody in charge of the monitoring of the entire situation and the dispensary of these relief materials?
You know, there are so many heartless Nigerians, and some people take advantage of every situation. They will not even mind stealing from the poor. But, you know, we have a very high-powered flood response team under the able leadership of the Deputy Governor of the state. And the team is in charge of all of this, working very closely with the State Emergency Management Agency. And we would ensure that there is very, very close monitoring to ensure that those that are affected are those that get those relief materials.
The Commissioner, however, urged the federal government, corporate organizations, international organizations, and private individuals to step in and provide much-needed relief during this difficult time. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Well, thanks to Joshua Imarayi for that report. We hope that the Kogi State government and, of course, the federal government and everyone comes together to provide some succor for the people of Kogi State, you know, who are in desperate need in this time. As the, of course, you know, weather changes happen at this time of the year, definitely every year. In many parts of Nigeria, there is one crisis or the other. NEMA has, of course, put out warnings and mentioned a few states, including Bayelsa State, which we spoke about earlier. And parts of Anambra State also have been greatly affected in the past as well. So I hope that, you know, these state governments are aware of the danger that looms and the steps that must be taken to safeguard lives and property, and of course, you know, help these people to get back on their feet.
Will this fall under the purview of the responsibility of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation? Because we have a new one now who's replaced Dangote Edwin, and I feel like this might be a great test, you know, a great test of how efficient he is. It's unfortunate that, you know, this is something that we didn't expect, you know, and Nentanwe Iwata does have his work cut out for him. But our thoughts and our prayers are with the people of Kogi State. Let's move on with the conversation now to talk about petrol. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery has commenced direct supply of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, to oil marketers, bypassing the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL. Dangote Refinery began PMS production on September 15th, with the NNPC initially announced as the sole off-taker. However, the federal government has now fully deregulated the market, allowing marketers to negotiate prices directly with refineries.
The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, has agreed to work with Dangote Refinery. The association's vice president, Hamid Fashola, stated this recently when he led officials to a meeting with the vice president of the Dangote Refineries, Devakumar Edwin, in Lagos. Joining us to discuss this is National Publicity Secretary of IPMAN, Chinedu Ukadike. Again, good morning. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Very well, thank you.
The last time that we spoke was in the FCT. And of course, you know, we had a lot of questions, you know, to ask then. But of course, you also made some declarations then that you were just setting up for a meeting with the Dangote refineries and you would have good news for Nigerians, the possibility of selling petrol cheaper than NNPC. So let's quickly just, get to know what has happened since then.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very, very optimistic, and I also know that any moment from now, Nigerians will have a relief of this racketeering and profiteering in terms of the downstream distribution chain. The meeting, the vice president of IPMAN I had with Dangote was an intro meeting, also a way of also introducing the intent of independent marketers towards having a direct sale or direct bulk purchase agreement with Dangote. Independent marketers now, we are coming holistically, to be able to offtake products from Dangote. And like I said before in our last interview, that we have the structure. We are 90% all over the country as far as the downstream distribution chain is concerned. We, the independent marketers, we own the filling stations in the nooks and crannies of this country. We have the trucks. We also have the finance to take any product that comes out from Alike Dangote's refinery. Like I said clearly, we welcome the invent of this refinery. This thing have already given us a lot of ambiguities in terms of making petroleum products. We want direct sales. We want to take our products willingly. We don't want these bureaucratic, lengthy procedures of collecting petroleum products from the source. Now that the source is here, we are no longer talking about importing petroleum products outside the country. We are no longer talking about a set of individuals, a set of companies, a set of conglomerates taking care of bringing in products while we become at their midst. Now, these products we have been imported is here, right here in Nigeria. And this refinery, 650 barrel per day refinery, has reassured us that they're going to produce whatever Nigerians can consume. So the most important thing is distribution. That is where we came in, where we are coming in. Distribution. Now, Dangote, after waiting lengthily for NNPC to offtake this product, and also looking at the variables that NNPC cannot be able to offtake this product, now decided to sell to other marketers. And I have confirmed reliably from the source that Dangote have started selling to marketers, maybe some DAPMAN members who have already approached him, and they have supplied them this product. What I'm talking about is for the independent marketers that have come holistically to be able to also offtake this product. We don't want this round tripping. We don't want our faith, our vision, and our destiny to be loaded into the hands of some people who, when we have paid in the products money into their banks, they will keep that money for 2-3 weeks and use that same money by independent marketers to go and import petroleum product or to go and buy petroleum.
Who are you referring to now? Which people are you referring to now?
I'm talking about the middlemen, like some DAPA members. Most of them don't own filling stations. You understand me? We own the filling stations. So that is why I'm saying that we don't want this. God has made it clear. The NNPC have said, Dangote, sell to anybody whom we want to sell to. The willing buyer, willing seller relationship has commenced. And we have lauded that. We also like to also thank him for taking the bulls by the horn. So our import license, in line with NNDPR procedures, is on process. The authority chief of NNDPR, who is also working assiduously to ensure that this issue of deregularization and liberalization of the market is followed religiously, has promised us that he's going to give us import license. And I also believe that maybe by next week or next 2 weeks now, our import license will be ready. We can take from Dangote. We can take from anywhere. That is the beauty of this liberalization of the market. I also want to reassure you that with what is happening now, this product will come down.
Okay, so I mean, speaking of coming down, that's what I wanted to ask about. Pricing, is that a factor to still be considered? Because I remember in our previous conversations, part of the concern you had shared was about how, you know, they were selling to NNPC at a different cost and it was more expensive for independent marketers. So is that a factor that we should still, the independent marketers are still worried about? Also, you had mentioned how the independent marketers will sell petrol cheaper than NNPC. Is that still possible?
Yes, with this part we are now going to have with Dangote, because we also believe and we have suggested and we have requested for an elaborate meeting so that we can be able to, you know, sit down with them and open up the tenets of this market, because it's a refinery. They might not be able to know what we, this is the individuals here, the practitioners are passing through. So by the time we will sit down with him, we will be able to open up, you know, what we are passing through, and martial out ways where we can come in to be able to facilitate of taking of this product. I'll give you an example that when Dangote came in with his AGO, the AGO at that time was 1,800, almost calculated to 2,000. But the minute Dangote started production of AGO, AGO came from 1,008 to 1,200. People who are importing also insisted that they would be importing. That even at 1,002, they are also making gain. After some time, Dangote also looked at his cost effect of producing AGO and reduced it to 1,000, even to 950 naira. This is something that was at 1,008, diving to 2,000. So I believe that with time, when the man has mastered the techniques of producing this petroleum product cheaper, this product will come down. I want to bet you this product is going to come down. It's just with time. Even at that point, some people start clamoring. He said you does not have quality. He does not even have license. You know, a lot of schemish things. You know.
So, but for now, Mr. Okadike, just to be clear, that, you know, the last meeting that you had, since that meeting, there's no actual agreement on the time with which you will start to receive from Dangote refineries directly to IPMAN members across the country. And there's also no clarity as to how much a liter of petrol would be from Dangote refineries to IPMAN.
No, not at all. Not at all. I told you that the meeting that the vice president of IPMAN went to Dangote was an intro meeting, which is giving part to this business meeting we are about to hold maybe next week. We are about to hold next week. That will cement our relationship. Even maybe an MOU will be signed that between independent marketers and Dangote. And this one will put a ceiling to the issues, these questions you have asked now, the issue of pricing, the issue of taking, the issue of logistics and all the rest of them. And also some of the issues that our vice president has raised, the issue of packing, because our trucks, when our trucks comes in numerous numbers. And when the independent marketers trucks will start coming to Pejuleki, it will be like Holocaust. So it is important that we also address the issue of packing, and which they also have promised us. These are the factors, these are the little variables that we will have to take care of before we start up business with Dangote. And once we move into that place, I want to bet you that products will be adequate.
When you finally have this meeting sometime next week, like you say, will the conversation about round tripping and, you know, measures to prevent round tripping be handled in the meeting? Will that agreement, the MOU you're going to sign, will it ensure that you don't have concerns about round tripping with, you know, DAPMAN and all the other bodies that you've mentioned?
Yes, that is our problem. That is what has been killing Nigerians. When there is adequate supply of petroleum products, people will be buying differently and people will be selling differently. Somebody will be selling to you at 1,040 naira. Inside his own filling station, he's selling his own 950 naira. How will you not sell? That is why you see some filling station, they will go and queue. The queue will round and round and round like mosquito coil in one filling station. Why the independent marketers that are side by side with them, does not even have product to sell. Even when they are selling around 1,002 because it is that same source, that same pump that they are selling to you, 950 naira. That is where we're also buying to sell in our own filling station. You see the hilarious aspect of distribution channel that has brought this profiteering I'm talking about and the increase in pricing. So with this direct sale, well, we don't have anybody to care for. If your product is cheap, we will buy from you and we will also compete with you. I have said that time with that number in so many studios that have appeared that with independent marketers, we are only interested in return on investment and continue turnover. That is what we are. We have our trucks. We have our depot now. We have our filling stations. We are not putting filling station from anybody. Neither are we hiring from anybody. Still, the variables I have all removed. It will bring down the cost of these petroleum products.
Okay. I understand, I'm too, I continue to hammer on this particular question, but it's because everyone is really concerned about pricing. And yes, I know that you may not have your own refinery, but can you give us a range of what you believe that petrol should be sold at in Nigeria, looking at all the factors that should determine price? Now that you're likely going to be getting off the Dangote Refinery, what is a price range that you think Nigerians should expect?
Well, also what I will say here, affirmatively and vehemently, is that the price will come down.
Come down from where? Come down from what to what?
Now you're asking me what is the price.
No, that's why I'm asking for a range. I don't want you to give me a specific price, but give me a range.
Are we looking at like maybe 500 naira to 700 naira per liter?
I want to reassure you. Once IPMAN takes off, price will not be above 1,000 naira. Once we take off, with what we are going to arrange with that, the give and take, the meeting we are going to have with Dangote, I also believe strongly that there will be an indigenous concession, because this is an indigenous refinery. There will be an indigenous concession that will be given to independent marketers in that regard. And whatever that concession that is given to us, we will put it back to the economy, to Nigerians, because we are not the IOCs. We did not come here to establish this. We are not government workers. So whatever concession that's given to us, we will. But I cannot be able to determine price for Dangote.
I don't expect that you would determine his price. He understands, or he rather will be able to determine what it would cost him to produce.
Somebody like me who doesn't own a refinery will tell you how much products can be.
Mr. Okadike, apologies.
I'm talking like a Nigerian.
Yeah, apologies. I want you to share with us what your own transportation or marketing, cost might be if Dangote says he's going to be selling at 500 naira per liter. For example, what extras would needed to be added between the Dangote Refinery and the petrol station?
It depends on the distance of the filling stations. Also remember that the cost of transportation is not being borne by the marketers. PF has been removed, so marketers bear the burden of transportation, and the cost of this will also determine the cost of transportation. But I also want to believe that, that because we own the trucks, we're also sell the diesel. Some of this marks up, we'll remove it. Product, if Dangote gives us this product, maybe at 1,000 or at 900. I don't think any if the filling even those in Kafachan, will sell anything less than 1,100 or 1,150. Just adding, minimal matching. But because we are interested in turnover, we are really interested in turnover.
Nigerians are interested in seeing products and seeing it too, readily available and at a very decent rate. I think the final question from here would be, when you have this meeting with Dangote sometime next week and you have this MOU signed, how soon should Nigerians expect implementation of this?
We are very optimistic. We are businessmen. If we finish the meeting by next week and NNPC have done with the process of our import license, and other documentations, because there are supposed to be bulk purchase documentation, which NNPC and the authority is going to issue to IPMAN to enable IPMAN, of take these products. So immediately that one is done, I also want to reassure you that highest in the next 2-3 weeks, we will be in business, and most of these issues will be resolved.
All right.
Okay. All right. Chinedu Kadike, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to, your news from next week. Let's see that, the meeting has been had, and then Nigerians will actually expect to buy petrol a lot cheaper than we're currently buying it. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak with you soon.
Thank you very much. The meeting will change the narratives. We'll definitely change the narratives.
All right, we'll see. All right, away from talking petrol, President Bola Tinubu's recent decision to make some changes to his ministerial portfolio has drawn widespread criticism from opposition parties and stakeholders. The president has dismissed a few ministers on his cabinet, reassigned some, and appointed 7 new ones. He also scrapped some ministries, merging a number of them.
The key opposition figures have dismissed the move as superficial and insufficient to tackle Nigeria's pressing challenges. Some see the president's move as a distraction from deeper issues facing the nation. On social media, Nigerians voiced disappointment that several underperforming ministers, particularly in defense and power, retained their positions despite ongoing issues with insecurity and frequent power outage. Now, joining us this morning is the former Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalong. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and how are you?
Very well, thank you. Before we get into your general sense, of the reshuffling that's happened, let me start from a very particular aspect. Your thoughts on the scrapping of the Ministry of Sports, and then your thoughts on the removal of the Minister of Youth.
Well, I was a Minister of Youth and Sports Development, which under this government became 2 ministries with 3 ministers. And here we are with a cabinet, a purported cabinet shake-up that ended up abrogating completely sports as a ministry. The decision is misconceived and also ill-conceived because it is a demonstration of complete ignorance of the sports architecture. The sports architecture in Nigeria is one of the cabinet ministries that have ministerial status because of the significant role sports play as a unifying factor in Nigeria and globally, and then the ability of the wealth-creating potentials of sports, and then the home it's also create for young people. So if you wake up today and you abolish the Ministry of Sports, it is an indication of lack of sensitivity or insensitivity to, youth development, because there is no ministry that creates wealth quickly like sports. So if you now relegate it to the status of a commission with a chairman, it raises a lot of issues because you cannot even deal with the prospects of or the potentials of the sector. So to me, it's one of the worst decisions that can be taken by any government in view of the current challenges this country has, because the sports needs to be a ministry with a ministerial status, with a seat in cabinet where a minister will present and initiate policies that will bring progress and development, create wealth, give hope to young people. So to me, I don't see that as a positive development. The government was misinformed by whosoever would have been responsible for this. Then the removal of the Minister of Youth again, is one of the catastrophic decisions that the government has taken. These two ministries are very, very critical to national development. The youth demography in this country is growing very, very fast, and government needs to concentrate and invest in it to be able to guarantee the future of youth. We kept saying youth are leaders of tomorrow, but we have not demonstrated commitment to this. So to me, this is a very sad development for me.
All right.
I mean, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to that, because in this case, are you against the fact that she was removed, that Jamila Bio was removed, or is it that there are any specific changes to the Ministry of Youth? Because you've spoken about the Ministry of Youth in general, but I think that my particular question would be, in this case, the removal of Jamila Bio, the Minister of Youth Development, were you in particular support, or particularly in support of maybe some of the reforms that you have seen that she brought to the sector? And I mean, do you think that she could have been the best person for that role?
Well, at my status and age, I will not be profiling Nigerians' performance, because I'm not going to work with her. I didn't work with her, so I will not be specific about it. But I will only generally say the cabinet reshufflement was more or less a complete distraction, because it did not go to the basic foundation of rejigging the cabinet in order to meet the current challenges confronting the country. There are ministers that had performed very poorly, but they were still retained. Some were even reassigned to other ministries. So I think what the president did was just to wake up and the normal abracadabra he does to Nigerians, to say, okay, you've been clamoring for cabinet reshufflement, I have reshuffled. But the entire thing is more or less like the enlargement of the cabinet, and is the continuation of his insensitivity to the plight and predicament of Nigerians. But I don't see, I'm not praying for it, but I don't see anything positive coming out of what he has done.
Yeah, I mean, but let's also talk about, the criteria for picking these people and making them ministers. Has that always, what have your thoughts been right from start, to see these names being put in these positions, even as, the cabinet was expanded, to the largest Nigeria has ever had? Did you, ever look at the names that were given these positions in all the ministries and believe that the current administration, was intentional about picking these names?
From the beginning, because after the elections, the president is one of the occupiers of that office that in contemporary history never had the support of Nigerians, because he scored 36% of the votes. So it demonstrated that majority did not vote him. Therefore, I expected at the beginning that he was going to form a government, an all-inclusive government, in view of the divisive nature of the country and the volatile political situation we are. But disappointingly, he ended up forming a government that further deepened the divisions of Nigeria. And he has again consolidated on it in this cabinet shakeup. Because I think, from Ogun State, there are about 4 ministers. So the summary of what the president has done is that it's political compensation. But there is nothing there for me to look at it, to even look at it individualistically, because the holistic approach would have been to try to concentrate on uniting the countries, bringing in people that enjoy the confidence of the people, so that you can deal with the issue of unity. And then they should have the capacity too in their various ministries to perform. So on the overall, I think the president with this cabinet shakeup has succeeded in expanding his campaign coordinators for the future.
Well, but I want you to do a quick comparison, if we can, with the government that you served under. Would you argue that that one was more intentional about the people that it named in positions, handling ministries across the country, compared to this one?
Buhari was more intentional in terms of appointment. The government only did not have the political will to perform. But in terms of intention, Buhari was more intentional. You look at Buhari's first cabinet and the people he brought on board. He carefully selected people with experiences and brought them to the cabinet. Of course, it was not an angelic cabinet. It has its own shortcoming. But the Nigerians who served there, even when I was in cabinet, I kept telling them, they were a very selfless set of people whose preoccupation was to try to rescue their integrity, having campaigned under the mantra of change. So we were more focused on that than any other thing. But what we have now, and I can be specific in terms of why I said this, I spent 3.5 years as a minister using my personal vehicle. There was no official vehicle for us. Buhari himself, in the first 4 years, did not buy any new vehicle. And almost all the ministers, we were using our personal vehicles because the ones we inherited were so old that even killed one of us. So we decided that since we were on national service, everybody should. We were also given the authority only to appoint 2 people, a special assistant and a personal assistant. And of course, that I lived in a hotel for 6 months before even getting accommodation to stay. And my salary was 840,000. The whole package take home.
Sorry, sorry, can you please say that again, sir?
My salary was 840,000.
Complete, inclusive of all your allowances?
Take home, everything. Motor vehicle allowances, housing, domestic staff. It was 840,000.
So why would you then, if the ministers, were not earning so much in comparison to the current administration, if President Muhammadu Buhari's term was really very, I'm assuming that you're saying by virtue of all of this, that your administration was very, very particular about cutting the cost of governance. Is that correct?
Exactly.
All right.
Buhari himself reduced his salary by 50% and that of his vice.
So how is it that Nigerians maybe don't believe that the past administration was very frugal or was very prudent in managing Nigeria's resources? And how is it that this current administration that came on the back of the former administration saying that it wanted to continue from where President Muhammadu Buhari stopped, how is that this administration keeps talking about inheriting an economy that was already in a very terrible state? Where did the money go to? Yeah. How did it leak?
What happened during the second tenure of Buhari is what I cannot vouch for because I wasn't there. But I guess that a lot of things that happened during the second tenure contributed hugely to the current situation. I give an example of what happened during our time. Kemi Adesh, the Minister of Finance, was such a very fantastic woman that I'm quite proud of. I will identify with her anytime. Anytime it comes to the cabinet that the government wanted to borrow, she was always very, very emphatic in opposing and putting before the cabinet the consequences of such borrowings. She was also very meticulous in trying to enlighten the cabinet. And some of us who are radicals will always line up with her because, I mean, we do not need to burden the future. And then there was nothing basically on ground. And I give you another instance that happened when it was in cabinet. A few weeks to our disengagement from the first cabinet, I asked a question in cabinet, and I asked specifically the Minister of Works. I told the president, I said, we've been sitting here for over 3.5 years approving billions and billions of naira and millions of dollars to the Ministry of Works, Power and Housing. But unfortunately, at the end of our tenure, we have not commissioned a 10-kilometer road. And the president referred the issue to the Minister of Works. So Buhari's first tenure was quite intentional in terms of cutting costs and dealing with the situation. It was during the second tenure that things went highway. Because I remember in 2019, I campaigned using my vehicle on the ground. I traversed the north on the ground. There was no place that there was this issue of serious insecurity. I went to even Zamfara. I slept in Bukuyum, an area which now I cannot even put my trafficator at the junction to go in there. I will be kidnapped. So some of these things, I mean, scattered after the second tenure of the president. And a lot of things happened. A lot of mismanagement, borrowings, and impunity, injustice was domesticated. So I'm not going to stand in for that. But I'm only going to admit that, I mean, something fundamentally went wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people would, greatly disagree with you. But, maybe let's not have that to be our focus this morning. Let's talk, now of the current administration, and the new decisions that have been taken, the new names, of course, that have come into this cabinet. We've seen, of course, that, 5 people have been dropped. Professor Tahir Mamman has been dropped as the Minister of Education. Uju Kennedy Ohaneye has been dropped as Minister for Women Affairs. And of course, Lola Adejohn also dropped. Jamila Ibrahim dropped as well. What would you expect going forward from these new persons who are going to be replacing the fired ministers?
Well, I will expect this. First, I will congratulate them for being nominated to join the cabinet. And I will expect these new ministers to concentrate and try to, in their own individual capacities, initiate, harvest first the low-hanging fruits in their ministries to try to deal with various issues, sectorial issues from their ministries that will have impact on the current situation where Nigerians are undergoing traumatic living conditions. They need to concentrate to look at that because basically this is the most important thing. I also expect them to work very hard and initiate policies also that will promote rapid economic growth. And then...
Yeah, but do you have any faith that any of this will be achieved? I understand that, yes, we encourage them to do these things, but do you have any faith that any of these things will be achieved, under the current administration?
When you pray, it's a wish. So I'm just being prayerful. But as to whether I am sure that, no, I don't think that anything will be achieved because this government has not demonstrated commitment to be able to take this country out of its current woes. It hasn't. So I don't even trust the government. to be very honest. And I have my reasons for this. You know, Nigerians cannot be facing these challenges with the fuel subsidy removal policy, and government is calling for sacrifices. Yet the president and his government are living very big, while Nigerians are being squeezed every day to sacrifice. I think we need more exemplary sacrifices originating from the president and his government. But this is not anywhere close. And then you have a very reckless procurement processes where contracts now are awarded whimsically in disregard to processes. And then this contract will go trillions. And then they do not go to procurement. Just the president waking up to announce, I've approved this, I've approved that. Government is not run like that. So we are basically having an empirical political system on the ground that we are dealing with.
Final question from me. What would your response be to those who say Solomon Dalong, is in no place to condemn the Tinubu administration, because he served under one of the worst governments to ever happen to Nigeria. And of course, he also was a very, very poor performing minister in the time that he was there. What would your response be to such criticism?
No, I have not even spared our own government that I serve. So that will be a political statement. There is no government that I have spared. Even the one I serve, I have told you that, well, it did not perform. So it cannot be the Tinubu's government that I am criticizing. I am only pointing out from what I know of government and what the government has done so far. If in 18 months in office and this government has not been able to even tackle any of the challenges it kept singing, it inherited from Buhari. And it's obvious that the president himself said he was going to continue from Buhari where he stopped, which would have panicked Nigerians at that point, and not to even elect me in the first place, because he assertively told Nigerians he was going to continue with the calamity. And yet he emerged as a president. And when he emerged, he even emboldened me with the weapon to criticize, because at the inauguration he said, "Do not pity me, I look for the job." So those people who are shouting around him are just mere political associates seeking attention. Because the man has categorically said we should not pity him. So why must we pity him? He looked for the job and he must do the job. That is just basically it. And Solomon Dalong has been faithful to that statement of the president to citizens that do not pity him. So I don't think I'm doing anything extraordinary.
All right. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning. We hope that we can have you again. Earlier, you had mentioned that some of the people, the ministers who ought to have been fired were still retained, and that's a sentiment that a number of Nigerians share. I was hoping that you'd be willing to maybe mention one or two so that if the president is listening, he can take feedback for when his next...
The Minister of Power has no business being there. The Ministers of Defense have no business being there. Nigerian economy has not been managed very well. So the Minister of Finance should not be kept because he's a close associate of the president. The Minister of Works has more or less been campaigning, and we have not seen much of anything except awards of contract. The Minister of FCT has been so toxic and is more toxic than even Bello Turji in Zamfara Forest, insulting and attacking and causing disunity everywhere. The cabinet is supposed to unite Nigerians. Why are these people still there, if not for political compensation?
Well, thank you very much for highlighting these, points. And I'm sure that the president is listening and will probably take note of this. Should a cabinet reshuffle happen again before the end of this tenure? But thank you so much, Solomon Dalong, for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for finding me worthy to be invited here.
Thank you. All right, now let's bring you a recap of the conversations we've had this morning and also share with you what's coming up next. Mixed reactions trail President Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle. We've just concluded a conversation with the former Minister of Youth and Sport Development, Solomon Dalong. Dangote Refinery kick-off direct petrol sale to marketers. Okadike Chinedu shared with us an incoming meeting happening next week. And family struggle as Kogi flood worsens. State pleads for aid. Joshua Imari brought us a detailed report about the current realities in Lokoja. Now let's share with you what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Coming next, Benue government dismisses Attorney General for questioning the EFCC's legality. We'll also bring you the newspaper front pages, major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning, and also our top stories of the week. And now it's time to get to the newspapers, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria today. We will squeeze in just 3 of them, I believe. We're joined this morning by Head of Strategy and Public Affairs, Nairametrics, Ode Ahimie. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Great to be here. My first time this month.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You are welcome.
I'm already here.
All right. Let's quickly get into it. You know, starting with the Punch newspapers this morning. Big story there, of course. Cabinet reshuffle. Presidency defends Tinubu as federal government slashes ministers' vehicles and aids. Federal government differs as Clark and others allege lopsidedness. Tinubu seeks Senate confirmation. Tropical storm leaves 24 dead in Philippines flooded.
Oof, not good. See the picture.
Yep.
Senate, what's happening in Lokoja.
OK's 15% states funding for regional development commissions. Broken aircraft windscreen aborts Shetima's Samoa trip. I heard about that. You know, he had to abort a trip in the United States. Naira devaluation pushes federal governments and states' debts to 134 trillion naira. Ooh. We can also find here military, NEMA combs sea for crashed helicopters, passengers. Police hunt gunmen as 9 are killed in fresh Anambra attack. Pensioners threaten protest as federal government and 4 states owe 193 billion naira. Those are the stories we can take in on the Punch. Moving on to the Daily Independent newspapers this morning.
And on the front page of the Daily Independent, Port Harcourt's crash is the big story. How we lost contact with helicopter we engaged by NNPC Limited. 8 persons on board killed as NSIB investigates incident. Former NEC chairman Nwosu dies at 83. Ekiti government wants headers to steer clear of its agric investment. Reps urge CBN to gradually phase out old Naira notes. Why we are reviewing laws of Nigeria Federation after 20 years by AGF. Cardoso, Edun, woo foreign investors say confidence return to Nigeria's economy. Tinubu to overhaul livestock sector, cut $1.5 billion annual import bill. Flood, Governor Ododo drills boreholes at IDP camps and provides relief materials. To cut costs, Tinubu limits ministers, others to 3-vehicle convoy. I'm sure we have a nice video of his convoy there that we can share. Funding for regional development commissions divides Senate. And that's all we have on the Daily Independent. Let's move to This Nigeria.
All right, just a few stories on This Nigeria. Stop moving in long convoys. Tinubu orders ministers. I'm not even sure what this means. Reduces official vehicles in convoys to 3 for ministers. MDAs downsizes security. Presidency says directive part of cost-saving measures. Mixed reactions over policy. I'm not even sure if the president is meant to be the one to detail how many cars a minister should move with. Is there? Well, hopefully they would know better. Senators split over source of funding for zonal development commissions. 8 dying Port Harcourt helicopter crash conveying NNPC staff. Arnez and others mourn Humphrey Nwosu as he dies at 83. Let's just get into it. I think I would start with the stop moving in long convoys talk. You know, of course, on the Punch, it also says the same thing. You know, the president trying to reduce the number of cars, vehicles, and aids. Is that the way it works?
How does it work?
I'm asking, is that the way it works? Can the presidency just say the convoy is too long?
Yeah,
reduce?
So they work for the president. So it's like the MD saying that we need to cut our costs. So rather than go out, each marketing person go out with 1 car. You reschedule or plan your trip so that 2 can go within the same area and use 1 car. So rather than use 4 cars, use 2. that kind of thing. But for me, yes, it is an avenue to cut costs, because when you consider the fact that, especially when ministers had to go out of station, because they're mostly based in Abuja, it means that if you're going with 5 cars, you have at least 2 extra cars and extra aids that you have to cater for, where you pay out of stations, you fuel those cars, and so on. So at least for the aids, you cut that, which is what has been done. Your most important aids are the ones who will go with you to whatever meeting or sessions that you need to go for. So that's one. But the other part of it is that, yes, 2 cars down, but the cost of petrol has gone up. So technically, how much are you going to save from there? But in the long run, for me, and the bottom line is, I'm not even sure that will even scratch the surface of the kind of cost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, how this works.
To cut down on, yeah, but that's the directive. So the other question is, if they flout that directive, what punishments are going, what are the consequences for flouting those directives? We saw the president, I think it was sometime last year, reducing the number of people who go on foreign trips. Has that been really effective and executed by those who are supposed to monitor it? What are the outcomes? Who has been penalized for doing A, B, C, or D? And which is always, for me, the major challenge I have. Policies are being written, but execution is sometimes non-existent. And even when you execute and people flout those execution in terms of how the policies are meant to be executed, nobody is penalized. There are no consequences. So what are the consequential issues here too? Is it just another front page news that we're just going to talk?
It's difficult to put them together, saying that they're trying to reduce cost of governance by telling people to reduce the number of cars in their convoys. I mean, like you said, it barely even scratches the surface, and
maybe they punch the numbers in terms of fuel, in terms of aids, in terms of cost to aids, and they feel is going to.
Can you take a look?
This is the president's convoy. If you know the number of cars that governors roll with.
Well, let's also,
and we're talking about governors, commissioners, ministers.
At the point in time, some people said it was.
I started counting late, really late, and from where I started counting, it was 15. Can we start again? Actually, I started counting late. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
That's 5.
7, 8.
That's another 5. That's 10. Behind that is 3. That's 13. So that's the first set of cars is 13, and then you have this is 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 plus 13, that's about 20 cars. That's
29.
Car.
No, they're not done.
Okay, wow.
So the first set was 21, that's 24. You add these as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13, that's 37.
43 actually. So our team is counting as well.
So you remember that there's going to be 2 bikes, or 4 bikes
that have gone ahead.
Exactly.
So yeah.
But the point is, I don't even know. I'm just tired because.
But like I said, the point for
what
me
does it even mean?
Have you punched the numbers to see whether it actually scratches the surface of the cost that you're cutting? And that's it. Because you reduce it from 5 to 3. Fuel has doubled.
How many were they doing before? Were they really doing 5?
I don't know.
Was there even
what the implication
specific number that they were doing before? Because another thing.
But the statement is cut it from 5 to 3. So invariably, that's basically what they were doing, what they should have been doing.
But I mean, so let's even go back to what it was before. It's not like anybody expected it would change, because we all know it's not going to change.
Well, we don't.
We know. Listen, every year. Okay, not every year. Every time there's a new Inspector General of Police.
They come and say they are withdrawing all the police, all the VIP protocol.
Orders are withdrawn.
Orderlies.
All roadblocks are taken away from our road. We never really see any of these things happen. And
if I want to travel tomorrow and I want to arrange a convoy, it's possible to make it happen.
If Mr. President,
if you require security.
No, I'm telling you that I'm not saying I will.
If you do require it, you can request from it. You can request for that from the Nigerian police, and they should be able to provide it for you, for as long as they have the availability for it. So it's not against.
If Mr. President says to his ministers, reduce your convoy, and the president is still rolling with a 50-car convoy, nobody's going to take any of that serious. And again, it barely scratches, it doesn't even scratch the surface if we're talking about reduced cost of governance. Keep in mind that there was a Premium Times report a couple of months ago saying that the president's wife, Remi Tinubu, had spent about 710 million naira on foreign trips as First Lady. And there's no official office of the First Lady. So
in the Constitution.
In the Constitution, yes. So if we're spending that much, according to the Premium Times, then who are you to then be telling ministers to reduce your convoy numbers? Like it sounds very deceitful.
And I agree with you, because we must lead by examples.
Exactly.
And this is what exactly you're saying. So if I'm the boss and I'm not, is walk the talk. Do you understand? And not speak the talk.
Anyway,
I don't want us to stay too long on that, but just to add to that, I completely see where you're coming from in terms of how it must be exemplified, and that's one thing that the current administration has been criticized a lot in a number of their policies and their actions. Is always like, do what I say, don't do what I do, right? I can see the sense in cutting a convoy. I personally can see the sense because, like I mentioned earlier, every average Nigerian who is an influential person can have access to VIP protocol. When we're talking about how we don't have enough police people, we're talking about how we have a shortage of police personnel. Everybody shouldn't have access to 10, 15 protocol police or orderlies when they're moving around. Really just, it doesn't really make sense.
Let's get your views on cabinet reshuffle itself.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's a major conversation.
Your thoughts on the cabinet reshuffle?
My thoughts.
In terms of, are you in support of it? Are there any names there that particularly stand out for you?
Well, maybe one in the 7 that were nominated. I know her background. I think it's Jumoke Oduwole. Let's see what she can offer. She's done a lot in terms of whether it's private sector or in academia, as the case may be. But the reality is, you drop 5, bring in 7, so you moved it from 48 to 50. You've merged some ministries, but you still have 50 ministers who are going to be paid from Nigeria's taxpayers' monies. Did we feel the impact of the 48 the last time? I don't think more than, in my own opinion, maybe about 8 of them. That you could actually say that, well, you could feel some level of impact, even if much of it was a lot of activities, but you could at least see some of it, a few things that had been done. But give or take, the 10 that you swapped, and I guess the Minister of Education lost his job because of the issues that you're having with how old you should be to graduate from secondary school and enter into a university. Because I know that a child, most likely through their parents or through their lawyers, have sued the federal government in terms of deciding how much it should be. Those things should be the determination of, yes, the educational system, which is clear. You're meant to start school at 6, 6 years of primary, 6 years of what's it called, which technically should take you to 18. But if you're brilliant and you're there, are you going to stop them from going to school? And the university system has also provided for that. I think it's 1 or 2 universities in Nigeria really before now, I'm talking about federal and state, that admit students who are 16 years, and you have to be 16 at a particular point in time. Every other university is an average of 17. So what are you saying? You want them, and in today's world, there are no jobs, no holiday jobs, so you want a child to take a gap year doing what? Might as well just go into school.
Yeah, but was that a good enough reason for him to be replaced?
It is really a controversial issue, and if Nigerians are speaking about it, then it is an issue that has to be looked at.
But here's the thing: if that singular issue or that singular policy,
I didn't feel his impact. But if your policies that are being seen to stagnate young Nigerians into going into universities or learning a trade, because the same thing you're saying is, if I want to go into a technical school after I graduate from what's it called, it means technically I have to be 18. That's what you're basically saying, that the educational system should be.
Yeah, but my point is that may be a policy a lot of people don't agree with, including yourself. Fair and good. But would that normally be good enough for a minister to be replaced?
Well,
because you can simply have that conversation with Mr. President or with the rest of the people in the ministry, and everybody says, okay, maybe we need to reverse this one because there are other things that are going on with the ministry.
It's a big enough issue for Nigerians to be speaking about it. And and it's a big enough, for me, in my own opinion, it's a big enough issue to take him away because you sat down there with your advisors and those in the ministry.
In that case, no minister should be there.
Well, I seem to agree with you. Like I said, I probably can count 5. I'm not sure I can count 10 on both my fingers, but yeah. But like I said, you swapped 10 to different positions. But how many of them have we seen or have we heard? Well, like the president said, you should go out and tell Nigerians what you're doing. But the people who are invariably doing the work, they're not going out to tell Nigerians. It's Nigerians telling their stories.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. And that's how governance should be. And it's the same way like governors or governors will come out and say, see how much work I've done. No, it's not for you to tell us how much work you've done. It's for the members of the state to tell you how much work you've done, which is your work. Your work is meant to provide infrastructure, ensure that these things and social amenities are available. Well, you build a hostel and then you come on TV. You spend more money promoting it on TV that you build it's not even a hostel, a 3-block classroom that would accommodate less than 200 students. And these are the issues that we need to start to talk about.
Right.
So it's not for you, and like I said, it's a big enough issue for you to take away the minister. It is a big enough issue, and it's a big enough issue when you say you're supposed to have fixed roads, and we can't even see that roads are being fixed or work is being done. Then it's a big enough issue if Nigerians are dying on those kind of roads for you to take away a minister. And the same way, big enough issues if Nigerians cannot have access to get their passports, do you understand, or go to the airport and be able to travel conveniently without the harassment of security operatives. It's a big enough issue, and if you're listening, those are the kind of things that you can kick the minister away.
Yeah.
And if you see those who are trying to do that, then you should actually say that we can see some form of activity going on, and that activity is in the right direction.
All right, I'm going to ask you about one particular one when we come back. Lenin, good morning.
Good morning, sir. It's been a long time. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes. I want to talk about this, the issue that the president said he has reduced the convoy of some ministers and the rest. Yeah, all these things is just for optics, so that people would think that the government is doing something. My own is that if Nigeria is we are truly serious in this country, if you want to solve the issue of insecurity, strip off all the ministers, their security details, the 360 National Assembly members, strip them off all their security details, and 109 senators, all their security details, you see that they will work. Because when you go out, if you go out alone without all these things, you'll be able to you fix something. Because look at education now. All their children, these people I mentioned now, all their children and their grandchildren are not in Nigeria. So they cannot, even the former minister, they just released of his job. His grandchildren are not in Nigeria schooling. If you check, one of the grandchildren will be in the university by 15, 16 years. The year he comes to Nigeria to impose something, and 1960, 1980, this thing, theory in 2024 that everybody is working with judges. So the problem we have is our leader, is the system. These people, they don't care about us. I always say they don't care. Whatever they do, whether ministers have 10 convoys on the rest, other one, just like the minister of FCT, that is the governor now, Emperor of Nigeria. If you see Emperor of Abuja, it doesn't work going. You think that it's one emperor like that. Keep him up to 3 or remove the division. Security will work in Abuja here. Thank you.
I wanted to, ask about, you with, Nairametrics, I believe that, you would know if there's been any improvement in the solid mineral sector. And if, our Minister of Solid Minerals, should remain.
Well, there has been activity.
Yeah, there's the establishment of mine marshals.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what they are meant to do. And it's funny. And why do I say that? I remember, I think it was in the 80s or so, and where what today is the National Civil Defense Corps that has turned into an arm carrying when it was set up. And I was wondering, what was their role then under, I think it was under Babangida or so, or 87 or thereabout. And what was their role? And today, so everybody is looking for some form of uniform people. Are you with me? Mining defense force. Excuse me? What happened to the Nigerian police? So all these people that you're employing, why don't you set the Nigerian police system better and provide more policemen for Nigeria? You're going to employ how many people? I really don't know. So when you set up this force, you set up that force, you set up that force, at the end of the day, maybe combined forces, you have like another 300 to 500,000 Nigerians. And we're telling you, employ more policemen. Why don't you just get those 500,000 people into the Nigerian police force and train them properly
security matters
to understand the judicial system? You know, I always continue to refer to it, the judicial system, which starts from security. That's policing. It's not the judges, it's the policing. And then it goes from there to the Office of the Public Prosecution before it even gets to court. So when we don't do this and we're continuing to say this is a marshal or that is a marshal or this is not a marshal, traffic policemen, we have last mile in Lagos, you have this one in Ogun, but traffic policemen, the ones that you call yellow fever, you can count them on your fingers when you walk, when you drive around or walk around the streets of Lagos. What happened to them? So why are we setting up new bodies for things that are already in existence rather than getting people into them?
But talk about the ministry itself, solid mineral.
Oh, huge opportunities.
Yeah.
Huge potential.
16 months gone.
Yeah, but like I said, their activities, it says they're working on the mining policy. It can take a bit of time. And let's remember, it's not just one mineral we're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it could take a bit of time to get the right framework and structure that would address the different aspects of it, because the way you mine copper is different from the way you mine ore. So all those things have to be clearly stated. Are they being done correctly? That's a question that I don't know. But rather than that, what they're doing is that they have a force who they say they want to combat illegal mining. Why don't we just open up that system and have a policy that works, put think tanks together along with all the people, and it shouldn't take us maybe 3 to 6 months to put a policy in place and then start to drive that policy. It's taking you 16 months and we still don't have a policy. But let's also remember when Fayemi, yes, he was the Minister of Solid Minerals, there was a policy that was done for solid minerals. So what happened to that? I can remember clearly. So are you saying that he didn't do anything?
Okay.
I'm just pointing it out.
I wanted us to also talk very quickly about the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Now we see the last 2 people who have been there have been very suspicious. There's a new person there. We haven't heard about Betta Edu. I want to
She's
assume
on suspension now. She has been relieved of her duty.
Obviously, this would now mean like she's automatically no longer a minister. But
Yes.
what then happens after that? Are we expecting to hear that EFCC has done investigation?
Well, they say they are still doing their investigations.
So do you think that they would ever conclude that investigation and would know? Because it's one thing for you to say...
I can't speak to that because I don't work in the EFCC. But you see, the fact remains this. It just goes to tell me that are you really ready to really fight the corruption you say you want to fight? Because I don't think that investigation should it's over a year.
Yeah.
Exactly. So does it take 1 year?
No, I don't think it's over a year. It happened sometime this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
earlier in the year. Yeah.
Almost, we're heading in the direction of 1 year.
Yes. Give or take almost a year.
Exactly. Now, so what impression are you giving to the Nigerians? So I fired her, but there are no consequences. Invariably, what you're telling me is that she did nothing wrong. And she was suspended for so long. Yes, there was a minister of state, I guess, who was running the place, who is now the substantive minister.
10 months.
Yeah, who is now the substantive minister.
Yeah.
So yeah, things have been happening, but we've been seeing that the palliative system has been working. Are you with me? We spend so much money on palliatives. Those who have received them, I can count. But money is in the government has said that monies have been sent to households into their cash accounts and stuff like that.
Although I haven't met anyone personally.
Well, you don't need to meet. We are 200 million Nigerians.
I know. I haven't heard of.
And I don't think you fall into the category of.
How do you know?
That's yeah. Here, look at. Well, yeah.
Do you know? Do you know?
I am telling you that's you see. So some of these things also is based on the perception. Are you with me? Who is perceived to be poor? But the reality for me, like I continue to say, is palliatives never work. They're short-term things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Build a system that will create production, and means that you need to get people to go to work and earn money
and also
spend
provide an environment, that makes
exactly.
And it's just that pending when those production systems kick into effect, people are going to eat
So I agree with you, but you see, these systems, are you with me, tend to invariably make people lazy. Go and look at all over the world where these kind of systems are. In the UK, in the US, they try as much as possible to push people.
So maybe
I remember in the 70s, late 70s, when Thatcher became, that he practically reduced the number of housing because people were just taking advantage of them. You refuse to go to school, you refuse to get an education, you refuse to train yourself because the government is just going to share money to you. But the truth of it is that we cannot become a productive country if people are actually not working and you don't create an environment for that thing to be done. And the biggest issue here for me is insecurity. Nobody speaks about it that much anymore, but it's still there and is rampant.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the reason I pointed out the solid minerals, conversation is really just to ask, what really is the criteria, with which we can say a minister didn't perform or a minister, is poorly performing.
Well, I don't know, but you know that.
Why can't we give everybody time?
But let's also remember that the president set up a team that reviews the performance of the ministers, and if they have provided a feedback to the president and is based on that, he makes his decision. Then all fair and good. And I think the criteria are clear. If you go online, you probably find them. And they met all that criteria. But like I said at the beginning, and I repeat now to close, I can't be the teacher who sets the exam, the student who writes it, and the examiner who marks it and said I scored 100%. So I just leave it at that.
All right. I wonder if you have a few thoughts. The former NEC chairman, Humphrey Nwosu, he's died at the age of 83. Remember the crucial role that he played in the June 12, 1993 elections.
Probably the fairest elections in Nigeria.
Yes, many have argued that is really the fairest elections that have happened. I want you to maybe speak to that very briefly as we move on. Some have urged the current administration. I saw where someone had said that he needs to be immortalized. They had asked.
I do believe he needs to be immortalized because he put his life on the line for an election that he believed was fair and fair, and he wanted the results to come out. Maybe now that he's gone in his biography, would finally find out. Well, someday we'll find out exactly what happened and how it came to be. But may his soul rest in peace. He died at the old ripe age of 83. Like I can say, the Holy Book says 70 years, and they gave him 13 years extra. So that's the celebration of life. Yeah. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen. Thank you very much, for your time this morning and for analyzing these ministerial decisions with us.
Is he analyzing for me? Why do you put emphasis on the analyzing?
Because I'm an analyst.
We wish these new ministers, the best. We hope that they survive to the end of the current administration.
I hope they are able to work and change and make some changes in Nigeria.
I think very soon we'll start to see tweets like this cabinet to favor me and my family.
Well, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, conversations continue this morning, but we'll go on a very quick break. And when we return, we'll be having our next conversation. Stay with us. Governor Hyacinth Alia of Benue State has suspended the state's Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Fidelis Mnyim, for his involvement in a legal challenge against the establishment of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC. The suspension comes amid a Supreme Court case where 19 states are contesting the constitutionality of the laws establishing the EFCC. The court reserved judgment on the matter this week, and new dates are expected to be communicated to the parties.
The states now, excluding Benue, argue that the EFCC's Establishment Act of 2004 was not properly enacted, according to Section 12 of the Nigerian Constitution, which requires specific legislative steps for incorporating international conventions into domestic law. Joining us now is legal practitioner Ibukun Fasomi to, of course, expand a little bit more about this. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers at home.
All right.
A pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. I think we probably would start with, your general take on the case against the EFCC by these states. Many have argued that, it's been engineered by the Kogi State, former Kogi State Governor Yaya Bello, and others, similar to him, who are trying to reduce the effect that EFCC has on these state governors when they leave office. But what's your general take on the case against the EFCC?
Well, for me, I think we should understand that as lawyers, when something is found to be illegal or not in full compliance with the law, by virtue of our profession and ethics and oath, we hold it a duty to challenge it. And most times, when you see people who are the chief law officers of a state, who are called attorney generals, it is within their duties to ensure that law is upheld and the rule of law is seen to be done in all circumstances. So for those who have approached the court for interpretation of some sections of the Constitution in line with the AFCC Establishment Act, they are still within their right to do what they have done. That said, I would also say that the truth of the matter is that if the Supreme Court, at some point, in the case of Wobike, had concluded and reached the conclusion that the EFCC Establishment Act was a product of a convention, which obviously was not in line with Section 12 of 3, I believe that the Supreme Court will, one way or the other, have to look at it again and give a decision. Thankfully enough, that matter has been argued and reserved for judgment. So I won't comment further in that regard. But coming to the issue of general belief and insinuations as it relates to the governor of Kogi State or former governor of Kogi State, particularly that the Attorney General of Kogi State instituted the action while others had joined, we cannot also rule out the fact that they have taken a matter before the Supreme Court which they perceive to be a matter of law that the court must rule and give a judicial imprimatur to. So the issue of sentiment and law, they are not the same and they will never be together. Anybody can insinuate. The question is, has any issue of law been submitted to the Supreme Court? I said the answer is yes. And for that reason, we must try to bifurcate sentiment from legality. So the issue that is before the Supreme Court is on the legality or otherwise of EFCC Establishment Act, particularly in line with Section 12 of 3, and also the Attorney General has canvassed Section 15 of 5. So all of these have been submitted for determination, and I can assure you that Supreme Court will decide it one way or the other.
Let's also talk about the legality or otherwise. I mean, is there an issue to be spotted here with the fact that the governor suspended the Attorney General? Does he have such powers? Because there are some people who have probably criticized, this act. So does the governor have the power to criticize the Attorney General, or is that an issue that has to be looked into as well?
The hard departure point to answer that question is that we must understand that all commissioners and government appointees of the governor are in that position at the pleasure of the governor. Is in the Constitution. They are appointed at the pleasure of the governor. And that explains why some of us over time have canvassed that the office of the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice should be bifurcated. Ordinarily, had it been the office is bifurcated, you know that there is a level of or measure of control that a governor can exercise over an attorney general. But in this circumstance, the office of the attorney general and commissioner for justice are together. And by virtue of that being together, there is a level of clearance and compliance that an attorney general must exercise before he takes an action on behalf of the governor. It needs not to be said that the governor is the chief law chief law officer of a state. I mean, is the chief of a state, and of course, whatever is happening in the state, the consent and the approval of the governor must be sought and obtained. So the governor has a right to suspend his appointee because he was appointed at the pleasure of the governor.
Okay, I mean, what do you expect to happen next? And now that of course, Benue State has taken this particular step, the federal government, of course, is asking the Supreme Court to dismiss the suit. What do you expect to play out next?
Well, it is going to be a difficult one for the Supreme Court, having regard to the fact that several decisions of that court has been made, particularly on the legality of the EFCC Establishment Act. Also, we must note that the issues submitted, they are constitutional issues. You don't need to go to law school to read section 12 of 3, and you don't need to go to law school to read section 15 of 5. All these issues together, put together with the arguments of canvas, there are things that it's actually predictable. But we must know that Supreme Court is infallible. The Supreme Court is not infallible, not because it's final, but it is final because it is infallible. Whatever the Supreme Court comes up with becomes a policy decision of the court, which nobody can appeal except to God. And in that regard, we must await. We cannot predict the Supreme Court. We cannot also begin to think that this is how it will go or not. But the question is that over time, Supreme Court has been seen as a policy court who will consider a lot of factors before coming to a decision. Like I said, the Supreme Court made a finding in the case of Joseph Nwobike and federal government of Nigeria. So that particular decision is still there and it was cited. Then also the issue of whether states can say that, the states must do everything to abolish corrupt practices. Does that in any way give a hanger toward the EFCC to act on laws of state that was not passed by state? Section 12 of 3 talks about how conventions can be domesticated, and that proceeding was clearly not followed. It is there. Nobody has contested whether it was followed or not. Nobody is trying to justify corruption. Nobody is trying to justify that EFCC is not doing a fantastic job. The point we are trying to make is that, can we legally say that EFCC Establishment Act was well-founded? So the answer will be done and given by the Supreme Court in a number of days from now.
All right, Devakumar Fashola, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope to have you again when we have a headway as to how this case proceeds. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
All right, and this is where we wrap it up. Thank you very much for joining us this week on Breakfast Central. I think it's safe to say that the highlight of our conversation this week will be that we had the interview with David Ogo, who is the twin of Daniel Ogo, who was declared missing months ago after landing at the airport. And the good news is that he has been found and he's been reunited with his family. We hope that when things are settled, we can have both of them on the show to share exactly what happened. But yes, that's the good news that we have for you. We'll be wrapping up. Join us again to have more conversations on Monday. But the conversations about politics continue with Breakfast Extra tomorrow at 8 a.m. So remember to tune in. We'll be back again. I am Olive Emodi, and like I like to say on Fridays, do not drink and drive. Make sure you turn up with sense.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon.
You don't look very happy.
You know why? I'm going to be here tomorrow on Breakfast Extra.
And you'll see him tomorrow. Bye-bye.